So, hey
Cool.
guys, welcome back to La Bóveda podcast. Today we're joined again by someone who doesn't just love survival horror. She actively helps preserve its history and shapes the future. Our guest is Becky. He's a producer, writer, and a core creative member of the Residents of Evil team, as well as one of the minds behind Resurrection, a Biohazard Story. And in these episodes, we're going to be talking about the projects she's currently working on, the creative process, behind Resurrection. We already touched that last time we talked, but we're going to be getting updates. And then we'll explore some survival horror history and or takes and stuff on the genre. I think it's going in the right direction, but we're going to be talking about that. So this is La Bóveda, where survival horror it's not just remember, it's dissected. And welcome again, Becky.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to talk about everything that you just described. So
Yeah,
cool.
it's one of those talks that I've been looking forward for a while, because I think I mentioned it on the other podcast that we made for the Resurrection. But
Uh-huh.
I think like Beggy has this thing about lore and stuff. I kind of they said that intelligent minds think alike, and then I just enjoy like having these good talks. So I'm really looking forward for tonight. So Beggy, uh, for people who doesn't know, if they live under a rock and they don't know about the Residents of Evil, but not know you personally, how would you describe your role within the Residents of Evil team?
Um, I'm often trying to analyze our favorite stories from weird new angles, and sometimes that is like not always desirable. Like for
Yeah,
example, if we were trying to make like some sort of news video or like analysis video or breakdown, that kind of thing. Sometimes I like to go off on various tangents, and I like to almost use video games as an excuse to
yeah,
explore all sorts of other topics like psychology and esotericism and mythology. And sometimes it fits well, and sometimes I find myself just going deep off in that direction, and just for my own sake. And
that's perfect.
with
Yeah,
some of the creative projects that we do that are original, I feel like I am able to sort of amalgamate and synthesize what I've learned from those weird tangential learnings to sort of put together something new. And I feel like that has helped me a lot with our most recent project. I want them to read the supplemental books. I want them to read things like Biohazard the Beginning, the este novels for Resident Evil.
yeah,
I want to
it's a
make
great.
that like very kind of that's sort of like a point of objective for me and has been for like a while, because I want people to think about beyond the game engine and beyond the mechanics. Who are these people as characters? Like,
Yep.
who are these characters as people, rather? And what are they dealing with? And what is it about their inclusion in their scenario that makes it seem so tailored to them? And why is it fascinating that they are up against what they are specifically up against
Yeah,
and not someone else? And I like just kind of um, disassembling the individual components of these stories and kind of like looking at what the writer must have been thinking
yeah,
and why they must have thought this particular blend of components went well together. And I think like that can be helpful to a lot of different creatives, writers, artists, just kind of trying to understand from a higher level and maybe from like a more abstract or idea standpoint, uh, what this niche is really all about. Sometimes it's about not being able to get over grief. Maybe it's about
yeah,
in Resident Evil Village, for example, wanting to resurrect your own daughter and storing her consciousness and sort of having it re-enter a new vessel. And sometimes it's about not wanting to grow old and die and become terminal. Like Alex Wesker transferring her consciousness.
yeah,
Sometimes it's about war. Sometimes it's about cleansing the slate of humanity because you believe it's degenerate and corrupt. Like, how could someone think that, right? So, all of these different perspectives sort of birth these scenarios in which usually antagonists, right, are trying to transcend the limitations of humankind. Like,
yes,
humans can't do this, but I can because I have some sort of bioengineered solution to this awful thing that I don't want to have to deal with as a human. And so that aspect of Resident Evil has fascinated me to no end. I think it speaks a lot about like different perspectives. What are you not able to withstand being a human as part of the human experience, and how are you using biology and bioorganic experimentation to transcend that? I think that is Resident Evil to me.
Yeah,
So,
it sounds like the perfect example on why I got to study biology after playing Resident
uh-huh.
Evil, because there's so many questions that arise, right? And then as the years went by and the franchise keeps moving forward, now they incorporated all these environmental and long-term storytelling into the game, and I love what they have done. Like, I know people don't some of people hate 5 and 6 as games, but the story and what they have done with Chris Redfield as a character,
I
all
love
to the
it.
point Village, I love it. I'm in
Yeah.
love with that, and I can't wait to see a little bit more. Because we were talking the other night, I was like, you cannot leave Chris as a babysitter now. I need something else. I need something. I need closure for that character. So I guess, I don't know. I hope we get something else. And now Leon coming back, and we're going to be talking about that later. But I also love what they did with Jill. Like, the Resident Evil remake 3 is not one of the famous ones from the remakes, because of the whole clock tower thing. But I feel like if you look at the new game, the approach on how Jill is handling all this trauma, and you can see the trauma building up
Mhm.
and everything. And then they did the Resident Evil Dead Island, and you can see like more in depth. So I
That
can
was such a
totally
good instance of
understand.
it.
Oh yeah, it was so good. Like the way that she didn't even want to talk or engage with Chris at some point. It's just it tells so much about the story and maybe what the writer was thinking when they were writing. The psychology behind the whole thing. And like you said, like, why are they up against what they are up against? Like that encounter with Jill and Leon on the
Uh-huh.
sewer like environment in the movie, it reminded me on the encounter of Chris versus Leon 6, because it was
Mhm.
like these two huge forces just collide that you never seen, and you're not expect what are you expecting from that encounter, you know what I mean? So I think it's great. I think it's one of the things that keeps people following the franchise, even though that they don't agree with what they're doing with the gameplay. So I'm super stoked for the future. So you wear multiple hats, as you like mentioned right now. So you're producing, writing, and you also do research, right? For your content. So I don't know. I'm just curious, because my days are chaotic. I'm just like trying to figure out how's a typical workday for you when you're doing content like this.
Um, I think that question is actually like a good one to demonstrate why like I won't have a like pretty typical view of like a workday. When I'm writing or when I'm doing stuff alone and when I get to be alone, then I get to have a little bit more routine and normalcy.
Yeah.
But I actually tend to be quite spontaneous in terms of like, do I want to write something now or do I want to read some news source and then maybe see what's fascinating about that source and then maybe incorporate those ideas in my writing. So that's like um a little bit more self-contained than something like production and producing. Like for example, the 2 months of crowdfunding followed by the month of getting everything ready, which was in July, and then August production, there was no like rhythm or normalcy or anything. It was just me. It was best described as like hypervigilance. Like I was just very
Yeah.
hypervigilant about like any potential issue that could
So out of
encroach
drive.
upon the like normal functioning of this production and the amount of work to do just in terms of the campaign, in terms of logistics, transportation, getting people to practice, getting people to like really understand the world that they are going to inhabit is it can be extremely chaotic, especially if you're working while doing it, if you're doing various other things while doing it. You feel like you just always have like eyes at the back of your head that are like always open, and yeah, it was difficult to find a rhythm and to find rest. But in the time periods that I was in pre-production for basically like the 17 or 18 months before that, before like May and June, when we launched the funding campaign, it was more regular and it was more normal, and it was only irregular in the sense that during that time, I basically sacrificed my ability to do much of anything else while I was writing the script like over and over and over and over again. And just like doing the production work, like to basically put people in the right places, cast people, interview them, see who is like best for the project. So that is what made it a little bit irregular and just lacking kind of like a certain predictable rhythm is that like a lot of it was new as well.
Yeah.
Like learning this medium of writing, like I literally learned the medium of screenwriting as it is for the sake of this project. Like I had no experience with it before. I was only doing things like short stories and like kind of like novel stuff and essays, sometimes poems, but like screenwriting is like a very peculiar format. It's almost like a little bit archaic,
Yeah.
and it's only like recognized as such in for
Yeah,
screen.
it needs to be like
And
that. Yeah.
yeah, and so all of that was just kind of a lot to learn at once. And then with production, the amount of just stress and pressure and headaches and deadlines that you have to deal with. A lot of that was new. I had a little bit of experience with working with The Keeper's Diary as a production coordinator, which is a pretty loosely used term on that project. Like I didn't have that much in terms of logistics and producing. That was mostly Andy,
Yeah.
From Biohazard Classified, and Andrew. But this time I was like the main producer in charge of like logistics and like how are people going to get to certain places and back? How are they going to fly? They're going to take a shuttle after flying, and they're going to take a shuttle back to fly back.
Just
And
making
they're going to be
sure.
like
Yeah.
at certain hotels. Like, are they happy in the hotels? And like, are they fed? Are they rested? Like, there's just a lot of managing people's emotions and people's energy. So that period of production, and I would say the 3 months before it, were very irregular, and my life looked like the rhythm of my life and the energy in my life looked nothing like it before and after that period of like 3 or so months. So
It's so fun to listen to you talk
yeah.
about it now because
Mhm.
last time we talked about it, we had Andrew and Charlie here, and you guys were going on like we're getting ready for this. This is gonna be like crazy.
Yeah.
So you guys are done by now.
Uh-huh. Yes.
That's great.
Yeah.
So
There's like these tiny little segments that we're filming as like little bonuses.
yeah,
But like 99.5, maybe 99.9% of it is filmed and is in post right now. So like the effects team with like roto painting and CG and animating and rigging are they're all like really busy like as we speak. Like they're doing such a good job. So
that's crazy. That's crazy, but it feels so good too, like seeing you guys really can accomplish this. Because I remember last time we were talking, you could see Andrew and the stress that he was going
yeah,
on. He
yeah.
was like losing it,
Yeah.
and I remember as we approached that deadline, I saw that bar going up and down, and I
Uh-huh.
saw your updates. I was so happy because I know that
Yeah.
you guys are really putting a lot of effort into this.
Oh,
Um,
every single day that I woke up,
yeah,
my first thought was just like,
me
what's the
check.
next perk idea? Who's
Yeah,
the next person I'm going to ask for a bunch of money? Like, who's the next
yeah.
person that like can I think will want to buy like a certain redeem a certain perk? And it was all just that. It was all like it like I can't describe to you the amount of stress created by a goal like that. Because if you try to math it out and say like every single day we'll need to raise this amount of money, it's like $3,300 every day.
Yeah.
That means that even if you get someone to redeem something like an associate producer perk for about 2,500, you still don't meet the average amount that you would need for that day. And that is a crazy high, big amount to drop. Like that's how hard it was. And which is also why, by the way, to sort of flip that question or that hypothetical on its head, you should never think about it as as a day-to-day thing because it's always momentum based. It's
Yeah.
never linear.
Yep.
It's like you'll get maybe like 30, maybe 40% if you're lucky before like the last, I don't know, maybe 20, 25% of the campaign is over, and then maybe you'll get a crazy rush and maybe you won't. It's very hard to win. And
It's so
just to put
good.
into perspective, how unpredictable it is. This is crazy. Just listen to this. Like I was talking with JJ and the team about how like when we initially dropped our crowdfunding launch video on Row,
Yeah.
It got like maybe 20,000 views, and we were hoping like maybe it'd reach more people. We still got amazing support from that, right? Now later on, we were able to still hit that goal. Right after our campaign ended, there was this Spider-Man fan project that came up. It had an amazing trailer. Like we didn't have a trailer. We just
Yeah.
had a presentation video with a cast. We didn't have time or budget to make a trailer. And they had this really good trailer, and it got 1 million views. It was trending, and it was like it was amazing in the YouTube algorithm. It was just making all sorts of rounds, right? This Spider-Man trailer, and it eventually got 1.6 million. Like now it's like around there, and that project had a goal of around like 250 or so K, like similar, and it raised like maybe like 2 or 3 thousand like total, like after
Wow.
like the goal had ended. So you can, and that was a trailer that got maybe like what, like 80 times or so. I did the math earlier, but I
Yeah.
forget exactly what it got, like maybe 80 times the views as or 20 times the views that as we did with ours. But we raised 80 times the amount with
It's crazy, right?
20 times less the views. So it's really subjective also to the niche and the community and what perks you have, the management. Like
Yeah.
there's so many factors. There's so
I
much that
think
goes into
I think you
that
guys
process.
have built a pretty solid community as well. It's like,
Mhm.
me included in there. I've been following you guys since like when I messaged JJ the first time and Andy, I told him like I've been following you guys since forever. And
Uh-huh.
I remember that when I started streaming, I couldn't get my stuff to work because I collect video games and I had the physical games on it, but I couldn't stream. I'm like, and I had to ask, I've been following these guys and we've been like, I think I sent some chats before, you guys like exploded like you did. 'Cause it's been amazing. And all of a sudden I decided like, what's the worst thing that could happen? Like, I message Andy and he never replies back. So I'm just going to message him. And hey, I'm trying to stream Resident Evil 3 and I have this and I bought all these connectors and whatnot. And he's like, no, bro, just this is the tools that we use. This is what we're doing. And he starts sending me all this stuff. And this is crazy.
Uh-huh.
He didn't need to
Uh-huh.
do that. And I think people appreciate that kind of stuff and the treatment. You guys are pretty down to earth, and that's something that people appreciate. So I think I think I told you guys that on the last time when we talked because
Uh-huh.
I felt like you were like, well, maybe we'll hit the goal. We don't know. It's like, don't worry, you'll
Uh-huh.
get there. You'll get
Yeah.
there. And I was so happy when it did. So
What was scaring me is that it wasn't just scaring me though. It
yeah,
was making me feel better.
yeah,
And it was making me think about it in like a different way. Like, okay, maybe there's really like I know we're like constantly mentally thinking about the next perk and like the next update and the next person to ask for money, I know. But like you and Tony
oh yeah,
and like just a couple other people were like, you got it. Like this
yeah.
is totally gonna like hit the
Yep.
goal. And I'm just like, what? Like, do you see what we're doing? But then like
I remember
you turned out
texting
to be right.
I
Yeah.
remember to sending you messages. Don't worry, you got this. And I text
Uh-huh.
Andrew too, and Andrew's like, he sent me an emoji like, I don't know, but yeah, it's
We added like triple the amount of perks
yeah,
to the campaign that
saw
we
that.
started with because we always needed something new to
Yeah.
like keep it fresh. So it was just constant like thinking about that. But yeah, it was like both of those things work together. Like I still need to believe that I could do it the way that like you and Tony and a few others thought. But then also I still needed to do all of like the wild, crazy, like ruminating and thinking and like generating that we were doing like every single day. So it was like both of those things needed to happen together. So
I saw the new trailer. Let's talk a little bit about that.
okay.
Saw the new trailer, and I'm not gonna lie, I got a little bit of goosebumps when I saw that scene where we see Albert Wesker on the volcano. And then at the end, the eye opens up, and then you see him like coming back to
Uh-huh.
life and whatnot. And I feel like that's something I love the idea of exploring that because I feel
Uh-huh.
like that's something like for me, I'm a huge fan of Albert just because of
Uh-huh.
the background in science and what you were talking when we started. It's this posture that he has about how he's gonna make humanity better because he has this thing that he's been working on and he has this idea. He doesn't have time for anything else and hence there comes these words like, 7 minutes is all I can spare and stuff like that. And I think Albert, it's another of those characters that, in my opinion, deserve a little bit more.
Yes.
But seeing you guys doing this, and I'm just gonna use the term fan-made project for what it is, because you guys are blowing it out of proportion with what you're doing. But but it's like you seeing people actually exploring this franchise the way that you guys are doing. It's the first thing that I started making content, because it was like I fell in love with the characters in a way that my mind just flies every time. And I remember me live playing or me chatting with the community and just telling like, guys, what do you would think happened if? And everything started with an if, right? And I just made a short video on Requiem. I made it in Spanish, and everybody was complaining about it. It was like, guys, that's my native language. So I made this video on the trailer, because I remember like 6 months ago, I did this video where when they shut up the gameplay, and I think I was watching you guys live stream when they're pulling Grace back, right? And then it cut out, and you get the Resident Evil Requiem screen. And I remember I hit space, and I was live, and I created a clip where I'm like, that's the moment right there. Leon is gonna jump on that moment. He's gonna be like, bam, 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 get behind me, whatever. And then the hand, you're gonna see the hand, and And
now we literally did.
When that happened, like in the reveal, I had like 4 of the guys that because most of them are working, right? So I got like 4 of the guys, and I included them in the watch along, and we're watching, and one of them is like, Joe, oh my God. And I'm like, dude, it just literally happened the same way. And it's just, this is not coincidence. And this is where we, people like us come in. It's like we've been living and breathing this stuff for a while. So you kind of expect some stuff, but at the same time, you don't know if that's going to be the writer's choice. But it makes sense for the long-term storytelling. And I feel like Leon, I don't want to, jump ahead of myself, but if you're going back to Raccoon City, there's so much you can explore again, on these characters, their trauma, their past, and everything, that I even said in one of the other videos, like, maybe we will see more people, not just Leon. I don't know. I don't want to jump the fence before we get there. But it's amazing. And it's, that when you can do that without foreshadowing something, and just nail it, it felt so good. I'm never like I never felt like this, like aside from when I'm talking about like especially Resident Evil or Silent Hill. Silent Hill is one of the things that I love, because just the in-depth of the human psyche and that depiction on how far the human mind is willing to go to create things just to run away from stuff, right? So it took this fighting against like the bioorganic weapons or the monsters to the fight within. And for me, that defines psychological horror, which is going to be like one of the topics that I want to touch. So we're going to be jumping like, guys, if you haven't watched the trailer for Resurrection, I'm going to drop the trailer here below so you can hop on and watch it. There's an article in the survivalhorror.com that I wrote when I watched the trailer. So just go in there and support the project. I think it's going to be super good. Do you guys still have the Indiegogo for the Blu-ray, right?
Yes. So certain perks are still up. All signed perks are no longer available. All of those have already been signed and they're ready to ship like early next year. But if you want any of the unsigned ones, if you want a Blu-ray, the novella that I'm writing, if you want a t-shirt or a hoodie, something like that, those are available. So
guys, I'm going to put also the Indiegogo link on the bottom. So I wanted to talk a little bit about survival horror, since we're taking the time to talk about all this stuff. And survival horror is talked about constantly on these days, but it's very rarely defined clearly. I'm not a definition guy. I'm more of how important something is and what stones did it put in history so it can resonate with people and becomes what this subgenre actually became with time, right? And what makes a game survival horror at its core. And there's people talking about, you know, the mechanics, the scarce resources, ammo, the healing items, limited saves. And there's like this lack of control that, in my opinion, that's my turning point where survival horror stops. It's when you have control, it's no longer survival horror. And that's why when you grind those games and you get the rocket launcher and you're running, blasting everything with the rocket launcher, it doesn't feel the same way again, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. How do you, what's your take on survival horror? And I asked this question, like if you watch the podcast, every single person that comes in here, at some point we touch it. Because for me, it's magical to see with the different perspectives on people. How do you see it? What's survival horror for you?
Yeah, survival horror for me is an arena in which people need to exercise and sort of test the limits of their ability to anticipate danger and deal with it. And so for me, there's always an element of how frightful and sort of apprehensive are you of the next encounter based on the resources that you have right now? And what kind of decisions are you going to make based on that level of apprehension? So in my sort of definition of it, there can be instances of you running around with something like a rocket launcher, a grenade launcher, a shotgun, if you were specifically prepared enough and self-sufficient enough to basically keep that around because you were able to creatively sort of find a way around using it at an earlier point. And so it's a classic example, I think, of this is like if you go to Resident Evil 3, Resident Evil 2 original games, and you're searching every corner and you're killing every enemy, but you still have hundreds of bullets. Is that survival horror? I think it is.
Of course.
You are ready for the level of intensity and danger and stress placed on your resources, and you were able to basically capitalize on being able to make do and get by with just scouring every place in its entirety for what it has to make your life livable. And so I think like that scenario of just running around with way too much stuff that like doesn't make it feel like survival horror doesn't stop a survival horror title from being survival horror for me. I do think that if you are looking to amplify and elevate your survival horror experience, you're going to be picking a difficulty and you're going to be basically setting parameters for yourself that make it so that there is ample tension and stress and demands placed on your problem solving and sort of decision making skills in the moment. I think that if you want to like really indulge in the experience for what it innately tries to be and is meant to be, then you will thrust yourself into scenarios that make you feel uncomfortable and anxious in that sense and make you have to slip out of your sort of usual familiar territory. That being said, I often don't do this. I do the exact opposite. I often go into games that I know so well, play them for the millionth time, and because even if I'm playing on professional or whatever, I'm so like just, I guess, seasoned or experienced in terms of where everything is and what I want to do. I think 4OG professional is like the best example of that for me because like you could make a joke out of the entire game on professional if you just know how to cheese certain enemies and situations, and you're very meticulous about how you spend your ammo. And so it's that's why it's kind of tricky because survival horror as a term, as a niche, evokes some sense of struggle and desperation. That if you have learned to sort of overmaster in a scenario, it may not look like it. But if you're playing the game for the first time, you're new, or maybe you're playing it on a hard difficulty, I would hope there's an element of all those things. And I also think that there's a sort of spectrum in the sense that games that actively incentivize you to take down foes by giving you rewards like ammo and money and things like that are less survival horror on the survival horror spectrum than games that simply take away your resources from you deciding to take down enemies and that's it. They don't give you anything in return. It's a loss to your sense of to your livelihood in the game.
Oh yeah.
And for your sense of self-sufficiency, you have to take a hit when there is foes around. That's like, I would say those games more so encapsulate the energy of survival horror
Yes, they
than
do.
games
Yeah.
like Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 5, where you kill Ganados and Maginis and you are rewarded with ammunition. I think that's like less survival horror than the other one.
Yes.
So yeah.
There's the element of action, and
Mhm.
this is an ongoing discussion in my community right now because it's been there for a while, and I always say like Resident Evil 4 is what it all started. That changed towards action, and we had games ongoing at the time like SOCOM and other things, and then the action movies were like they were like crazy in Hollywood and whatnot. So you can see, and this is where I see the subgenre as metal music, like we were talking before we started recording, because you have that OG titles in there, and I have these things that I called, like if you go into the vault into survivalhorror.com, I call them the precursors, right? Like stuff that set the base. And I start all the way to 1981, and I name AX2, and some guy was, that's not survival horror. I'm not saying that's survival horror, but the elements of the claustrophobic like hallways, finding a key to open stuff and running around when you just have lines and dots, that started the whole thing, and then it permeated, and you have like Zombie, which it's a very, very old game from Ubisoft, that it even starts with a helicopter. Starts with the helicopter coming in, and there's like the zombies and everything. So there's a lot of stuff, and I just like to see the history as a whole. And there's this other discussion or the theory that I named that people are calling like Resident Evil was like a ripoff of Alone in the Dark, because Alone in the Dark came in first, and they introduced the tank controls and all the mechanics that later became the hallmarks of the subgenre of survival horror. But I see it as Capcom actually took, and they did the same with PT. When they brought back, like, in Resident Evil 7, they brought everything back. They just took the formula and, they saw it, and they just did Sweet Home, that even though Sweet Home is not like this direct influence, but you can see like the transitions in the doors, everything that they just like reused again. And they saw what these people did, and they basically told like, we can do something with this. And they just make something like, they just put more action into it. They work on the environmental storytelling and more in depth. They added the cinematic scenes on it, and that's when we first saw Charlie in there in the live action thing. And I think it helped with the long term, the environmental storytelling, and the character development. Because when you play Alone in the Dark, it is a good game. It is a great game. The mechanics, I love it. I still play it. I have my own DOS ROM around, and just for nostalgia, just put it in just to see the intro, and it's great. But if you compare the character development in that game, if you're more into like storytelling, then you there's definitely a huge leap, like a jump into when Resident Evil came out, of what they did with the genre. So there's a bunch of people that jump into that, and they also reject the fact that games like Dead Space, The Evil Within, that they don't embrace survival horror. These games are not survival horror; they're action adventure. They lean more towards The Last of Us, and there's all these crazy theories going on. And for me as a gamer, and as a fan, I cherish more the time where we used to enjoy the games for what they were, right?
Mhm.
And there's not like a need to classify stuff like this is this, and I hate it because it doesn't fit this, particular thing. But with survival horror, we have this peculiar thing that it's happening, that people keep classifying stuff, and I think it's great because they're coming out with these crazy branching theories, and I fell in it too. I started like creating my own thing, and then people are starting telling me like, no, that's not true, because that game is not survival horror. You can't put that in there. And I've seen some crazy stuff where Rule of Rose and Hunting Ground are more survival horror than Resident Evil. I'm like, like I can understand the reasoning behind it. Like what makes you feel do you surviving horror, right? In
Mhm.
those games, like for example, Hunting Ground, you don't have a weapon. So you're like damsel in distress, somebody's, chasing you and whatnot. You have Clock Tower 3
Yeah.
too. But the fact that it was a marketing scheme added by Capcom to the game, like survival horror there. You can see it on the Japanese cover. It's great. It's just there. And it created this thing where people started identifying that type of gameplay with that scheme that was announced in the
Yeah.
video game, and then it
Mhm.
became something. It's crazy to not think how this has evolved with time. And I think the best example is Resident Evil 4, because it started that transition. And even in the back of the game, if you turn the game on the back, it says, forget about survival horror. This is the new whatever. And that was Capcom saying that on Resident Evil
Really?
4. So
Uh-huh.
it's one of those things that I think I'm gonna side with what you said on it depends how the game makes me feel. Because when I played Dead Space, I was nearly this close of breaking my controller the first time.
Mm.
And I felt the same hopelessness. Even though you're killing stuff and they're dropping bullets, the game mechanics and the storytelling and maybe the level design is done in a way that it makes you feel the same thing you felt when you were playing Resident Evil back in the day. Like all
Yeah.
this desperation, I can run, and then you all of a sudden you think you're getting your reward, and there's another enemy popping out, and the only thing you have is like maybe 25% of your health bar, and the Callisto Protocol too, and there's a bunch of other games that came after that thrive on that spirit and maybe evolve the genre moving forward. But at the same time, I would love for new game developing projects to be, looking at not letting the OG feeling go away. And that's why I started embracing the new projects that are coming out. And I started playing like indie games around 2018.
Mhm.
And I have gems. We have gems. We have Alisa, we have Signalis, we have like Crow Country. I just played something like 2 months ago that I've been playing on my mobile device. It's called Look Outside. It's like an
Mhm.
RPG turn based, but with survival horror like elements. And it's
Oh, okay.
great. It's pixelated. It's one of those games that I never expected that to be that good. And one of my followers just give it for me. It's like, hey Joe, happy birthday. Here's this game. And I just went in there with no expectations and found a gem. And for me, that's where it's moving right now. Like the
Mhm.
survival horror genre, it's being carried away by the indie scene, especially the OG formula. Like games like Tormented Souls came out, Heartworm. There's a bunch of others like Hollow Body and whatnot, and they're more close to the sixth generation. They still have that feeling. So moving in history like a little bit forward,
Uh-huh.
what's your opinion on psychological horror? Because nowadays psychological horror is looked at something completely different because it has become its own thing. Now we have things like I don't know, like people are calling them walking simulators with puzzles, and then you have like the OG mechanics that resemble survival horror, but you have first person psychological horror games. There's a gamma the same way that survival horror branched out. I think psychological horror became its own thing. So, what do you think about that?
For me, it's not the end of the world if these labels or titles are like if there's a purveyor of a certain um maybe group of characteristics
Yeah.
or classifications that qualify something as survival horror
Oh
and
yeah.
that list does not match someone else's. I think people are inevitably going to start using these terms a little bit more loosely and sometimes even like a little bit interchangeably. Like for example, I don't know how much you would consider something like Resident Evil Village like a survival horror game, but
Oh yeah.
like maybe it's like a similar amount of survival horror and action as like RE4 and RE5. So there's a lot of blends in genres. Even if you ask a lot of people in film, um, I think a similar philosophy can be applied to games. A lot of people in film think that like almost every movie now, um, rather than there may be some that are pioneering and etching out new territory for in terms of subgenres, but a lot of them are blends of genres that we know. Like
Yeah.
they may be like something like an action horror or drama. Like I would describe Resurrection as that. There's like a lot of drama along with action horror. Something like Silent Hill 2 is both psychological horror and survival horror.
Yeah.
And so it's not something that like where if the psychological component is more prominent or more influential on sort of the viewer's interpretation of or the player's interpretation of the entire experience than survival horror. It sort of overrides it because it certainly has like all the same DNA. So like for me, it's never been so significant in terms of what labels or what genres or subgenres a horror title falls into. It's kind of a thing of well, I think what's significant to me is understanding where the sub niches came from, though, because how they were pioneered is how people will associate new titles that may primarily fall under that. So, for example, with Silent Hill 2, with it being so right brain in the sense that it's so visual and it is so metaphorical. It's like the least literally and explicitly told story in gaming maybe ever. All of it
right
is
there with you.
is suggestion and subtlety. There's a lot of titles, a lot with in terms of action horror and survival horror even. You'll see sometimes a little bit, I mean, I don't want to be rude about it, but you might see a little bit more prosaic sort of storytelling where they're just kind of tell you what's going on. And sometimes that fits the scenario. It's fine. But with Silent Hill 2, it's the exact opposite. It's all about the poetic subtlety. Yeah. It's all about the nuance and it's all about suggestion and metaphor and not really just like kind of showing you directly what's happening. For me, that's a case in sort of pioneering psychological horror and cementing it as something that is like especially distinct and could essentially start its own type of genre.
Yes.
Where people, even if there are survival horror elements sort of layered on top of it or superimposed on it, saving ammunition, looking after your resources, looking after your health drinks, that kind of thing. It is so differentiated and so distinct with its ideas, and you are like facing a lot of what are pseudo real or like semi real, like kind of like imagined horrors, and you were apparently able to stop them using real ammunition, and it may be imagined ammunition as well. So it's kind of blurring the line in that sense where mechanically, sure, it's survival horror, but like thematically and narratively, psychological horror is the defining term. So it's kind of like it kind of depends on the angle of interpretation of the player of like do you see games primarily as a narrative and as a story, or do you see them primarily as like a mechanically designed sort of playground where you could like test out these different functions and try to survive and progress in some kind of sequence? Is that like the first thing that you think of, or is it really like a story first? For me, it's like Silent Hill 2 is almost like the entire thing doesn't really need to be played. It could be watched. Like that's why I actually think that like an experience like that is like it is a story first. It's like I understand the appeal of certain environments sort of metaphorically resembling various traumas carried by the different characters. Angela, Eddie, James, so like you see these different scenarios. Like there is a magic to exploring them as a game, yes, but fundamentally it's kind of like the story here, like very, very heavily influenced by Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment, by the way. Reading that book, you start to see a lot of different psychological mechanisms that are built into Silent Hill 2.
Yes.
That you're wondering, like, why is that a thing? Why is this a thing? And it's like, that is like, well, like some of it is straight from the book, and some of it is like Raskolnikov's behavior sort of superimposed on James. So I think when something is that narratively rich and kind of like plays with ideas in that sense so much, they have a tendency to sort of spark off into their own category, their own niche, maybe branch off into their own sort of classification. Whereas there's a lot of survival horror titles nowadays that they're very aesthetically unique and they're very kind of like mechanically nuanced too, but they are like very much survival horror in the sense that they are made in the spirit of specifically
Yeah.
usually Resident Evil. Yeah. Um, but yeah, that's kind of like how I see it.
I think Silent Hill 2 for me is so special because
Hmm.
back in the day when I played, I was just a kid and I didn't understand a lot. But
Uh-huh.
then that game, the same way the Resident Evil franchise did, but Resident Evil franchise just grew up with me because of the character development, and I grew up knowing these people and seeing what they were going through. So that's why it's so important for me. Of course, I love the whole aesthetic, the story, but with Silent Hill it was different because as I was growing, I started to understand more of the story, right?
Hmm.
And as you said, there's so much in the environmental storytelling on Silent Hill,
Hmm.
right? That you can watch it. So I feel
Yeah.
like in survival horror you have this thing, right? When you escalate the difficulty and or even a puzzle or something that it feels like this is impossible, you know that there's a reward after it, even if it's
Yeah.
the story or whatever. In Silent Hill 2, you didn't care that much of what was happening mechanically in the game. You just
No.
wanted to get to the next spot to know what was going on.
Yeah.
And for me, I think psychological horror was born definitely with Silent Hill 1, with that is key. But at the same time, there's games like go back like Sanitarium. They're so heavy. It's like I played that game like the other day because my wife got me a copy for my birthday of the
Hmm.
PC game, and I didn't remember how good the narrative on that game was. I just remember it as a yes, it's psychological and whatnot, but it's a point and click. It's not gonna be that deep. And then I played it now, knowing and having been to all these psychological great stories that we've been to the past, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 years. And then all
Hmm.
of a sudden now I played that game that came before all this started, and I'm like, oh my god, this was so good. And then you have, of course, this influence of Jacob's Ladder in Silent Hill, and there's like a bunch of other great stories that permeate into the game, and that we know now that they were like they were influences for the game. But again, just going back to Silent Hill 2, it's so special because it can be interpreted so many ways. Like for me, I love playing to get all the endings and thinking about how each ending could be possible within its own thing. And I remember when we were doing La Autopsia for it with my friend Capita, we were talking about how we came up with this thing about if you kind of think about it, the first game, now they introduced that loop theory where James is just like going around. Now everything makes sense. Even the UFO ending makes sense now. It's just like and people were like, no, there's no loop. And then you're going in the remake and you go around and you see his jacket dropped in one place. There's bodies that resemble James' body in spots
Yeah.
that they're like super important stuff. They're actually like highlights of stuff that happened in the OG game that are no longer there, but you can unlock them. So it's so cool. Like Silent
Mhm.
Hill 2, it's so
Just
cool. And
very
then
open.
it's very open. And then Silent Hill 3, it's one of my favorite games from the franchise. I can't wait to see what they're gonna do with 1. Because I think
That was one
that
remake.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think that they're gonna rehaul the story without damaging it. If I don't know if I'm being accurate with that, but if they apply the Silent Hill 2 treatment to the first one, because the story from the first one is so deep too. They just have so many limitations on the PS1.
Uh-huh.
I think it's gonna be great. Like going
Yeah.
back, remaking that so we can get maybe possibly in the future a remake of 3. That would be, for me, be flawless. And then Bluebird Team is doing such a good job with it. So good. So I always like to touch like this. We're getting to that final stretch, but I'd like to talk about the future of survival horror because we
Mhm.
hinted a new Capcom hinted a new era of survival horror begins around 2026 with Requiem, and I think it's drifting that way. It's not like what they presented is the first time that we're gonna see it because I feel like from a gameplay standpoint, they focus all their energy on make it clear from the moment that they officially incorporated Leon into the story now that Leon is going to be action and Grace is going to be that horror, survival horror feeling, right? And we already got a little bit of that campaign when they were promoting 6. I still think that 6 is a great co-op game, and the story, it's very rich, especially for the character development of Chris. So good. And even Leon. I mean, it has so many good story elements in there for the franchise. The game just makes me dizzy. I just tell the guys every game. It's a great co-op game, but I think we went back with Chris. Weird enough, my friend called Chris, but I went with Chris to play it like 2 days ago, and we were in just the first scenario. We're going to the buildings up and down, and I was like, dude, I'm dizzy. And he's like, why? These camera changes are crazy with this game. Like, I didn't remember this was this, like, and he's like, now you get what there's a lot of people that don't like it.
And there's a camera shooting around when you're searching for the keys in the car. There's like a camera shooting around when you're climbing a building, and that has to be quick time. So it's like, I feel like both the sensation that you get and just like the acknowledgement of like going to play the game, it feels like going on like a merry-go-round. Like you just feel like some, like, I don't know, you just feel like some kid.
He told me it could be worse. We can make this into VR. I'm like, no, please don't. You make this into VR, you're gonna make me throw up. It's like it's bad. So, what are your thoughts on Resident Evil Requiem? Because I feel it feels so symbolic, especially with Leon, like not being introduced as the main protagonist, but now he's gonna share it. It's kind of like weird, the approach, but I get the marketing standpoint that they use for it, telling us first like Leon's not in the game, and now like Leon's in the game and everybody's like losing it. I think they did great on that, and I expect their actually marketing campaign to ramp up now because we're getting there. So what are your expectations? How do you see this whole thing?
I love really everything that I'm seeing. I was very fascinated by this villain. There is a like analysis sort of breakdown video that me and JJ are writing right now that kind of goes over what we think the significance of Elpis is with this new villain, this Victor Gideon figure. He's just sort of caught the most of my attention. Leon, I love him. I can't wait to play as him. It looks like really fun. It looks kind of wild. It actually reminded us of Resident Evil 6, like the way he's kicking people and the way he's doing like the quick shot, like into someone's like skull and like bursting their head
to the top of the head. That was crazy.
Yeah, both of those things were really like RE6 like, and just the way that the camera moved.
Yep.
He was but yeah, no, it looks good. It looks really fun. But what really caught my attention just was all the thematic stuff going on. So we know that it seems, right? If you look at Elpis is sort of the Greek word for hope and sometimes personified as a minor goddess. And what is fascinating is that in this trailer, Victor Gideon is looking at Grace and he's saying, through you, Elpis can finally be set free. And what that means is that, so in the Greek myth of Pandora is like kind of like an Eve, but like Adam and Eve, but like not in the same context at all. She is the first woman sent to the earth, and she is actually done. She's actually created by Hephaestus, who's like the sort of lifesmith or blacksmith that creates life of the gods, and then Zeus brings her to life after she's designed, and she is given all these gifts, and she's given this gift of curiosity by Hera, and this gilded box through Hermes, and so naturally it's like the story of like opening this box and you're not supposed to, this never to be open box. And it's really fascinating because there are just so many fascinating parallels that you see now between Grace and Pandora, and also between kind of Alyssa Ashcroft and Hera, because her mother was an investigator, and it's like with that same sort of curious investigative spirit, Hera, just as she sort of gave curiosity to Pandora, Alyssa is kind of giving her curiosity and inquisitiveness and investigative edge to Grace. And now Grace, I think the metaphor of opening the box in that sense, and in the Greek myth, it unleashing all of these evils is envy, despair, death, destruction, hatred, all of these like sort of agonies of human existence are released, and hope, Elpis, is left in the box.
Yeah.
I think Elpis sort of, in that sense, is going to be tied to what she physically inherited from Alyssa. I think it's going to be tied to Daylight vaccine from Outbreak, and so I think that it's very thematically rich in the way that a lot of like the best Resident Evil titles are, in the sense that if Victor sees it as hope, that could mean one of two things. Is it hope for him to sort of maybe regenerate what he's lost, because he has some sort of severe ailment right now. He's like sick with something. Even in the photo that was from the past, when it looked like he was the director of the sanitarium,
Yeah.
he seemed kind of sickly in his skin and kind of gray and pale, almost like a tyrant a little bit. And it makes you wonder, because so many things in these trailers are so often misrepresented.
Yes.
It makes you wonder if Victor is even being misrepresented as antagonistic. He may actually have good intentions. He may actually be trying to spread Elpis, or use it to synthesize something. To maybe take something from Grace's blood, maybe Daylight from her blood, or something similar, and then use it to create Elpis. And then Elpis truly is hope for these inpatients of the sanitarium who are now afflicted with this deadly outbreak, this infection.
Yeah, I
can see I wonder, I wonder if, similar to how in the Village trailers, Chris was sort of misrepresented as being antagonistic and he was hiding a lot. We hear in the trailer about Victor too, that he is a person of interest. That doesn't mean that he is destructive or malicious or maligned or anything like that. He's a person of interest that bought this sanitarium after Umbrella went under. Maybe he was truly trying to help the people there. Maybe he's at least an anti-hero character, if not like a genuinely benevolent individual. So that's what I wonder. It's how is it hopeful? How is Elpis hope? Is it hope in the sense that it'll save people? Is it hope in the sense that he's trying to spread it in a destructive manner, and he is a bioterrorist? So like what is the hope, and who is the hope for? And if that hope is the one thing left in Pandora's box, then Grace going to allow him to unleash it? And it's like, is it just in her blood? And that's what unleashes it. It's kind of like her opening the box is her deciding to go on this quest to investigate the truth behind her mother's death. I think that's really the opening of the box is like her deciding to take that case. And if this FBI agent guy, this Dempsey, is corrupt or whatever, he's double agent or whatever, that could mean that usually in real life, if your family member is so directly involved in a case, you can't take the case. It's a conflict of interest. So if he's loosening those restrictions, and she's like opening the box this way, that it makes you wonder, that's like just always been a classic element. That's always been a classic component of Resident Evil writing. It's just like, where's the false allegiance? Where's the traitor?
Yeah.
Where's the mole? And it's
where's the mole? Yep.
Yeah, I love that. So.
I think like when I saw Victor Gideon, we were talking with the guys, and I'm like, I wondered if we're gonna touch that theme on who was behind the connections. And maybe maybe tie it down to, maybe he was like because we know now that he was a scientist and he's associated with Umbrella somehow. And I remember that there was this dude, I can't remember the exact name, that he fled when he found out, and he went to London, and that's how the connection started and the whole thing. But I don't know if Victor, I see him as a very interesting character, because I remember when we first saw him the first time, I was looking at the wound in the chest and I was like, it can't be Spencer. I'm like, it can't. And then one of my guys is like, well, he looks burned. What if it's Wesker? I'm like, that's crazy, bro. Like, you guys need to stop. And we started going on and on and on and on. And then when the character was finally revealed, now we know everything. I was talking with them, like, I think this dude, it's gonna be like a very important figure that is gonna tie the current storyline with the Umbrella thing and Raccoon City and the whole sterilization of the city after the after
Yeah.
the incident. But I think the name Requiem, it's gonna be so important for the story, right? That I don't know if we're gonna see some of the maybe one of the guys go. You know what I mean? Like it's like I did a video and I think I saw something from JJ too. Like I remember I released the video and then I'm like, I can't be the only person that noticed that Leon has strange shadow in the neck
Yeah.
when he's talking. And I went over with the guys and I'm like, it wouldn't surprise me because Leon has been mistreated the whole thing. Every time there's a game, he gets infected, but it feels different this time. And I don't know. I don't think I hope they don't kill off Leon. But at the same time, if something like that happens, it's like, like my old man used to say, it's like, come on, guys, it's like 9 games already. Leon is like 50 something, and I remember at some point we heard that they were trying to revamp the franchise and doing new stuff and whatnot. But I think like if we're gonna give like closure to this story, I need to have closure to all the main characters. Like I need to see something with Claire, I need to see something with Jill, I need to see something with Chris. And we always came down to this scenario, that super crazy scenario that kind of reminded me what they did with Dead Island. Like if you would bring something crazy, like you would bring Wesker back somehow and he's there's like a platform and whoever's gonna die, it's like a sacrifice to save everybody and like going crazy with the theories and stuff. But I think it's so good that in 2025 we get to still experience that thrill about seeing a Resident Evil new trailer and looking forward to it. Now the thing about redefining the a new era of survival horror will begin. How do you see that? Because I think it's just straight marketing, but at the same time, I can't say for sure because we haven't played the game and I'm not that type of guy. I don't like jumping hoops. But it feels like we've been here before when you can mix that survival horror feeling and the action horror on the same game and still have like a great experience. Because like I said, I think 6 is a great co-op game. And the fact that you can play with different characters was good. I mean, it's not the best game from the franchise, but it definitely adds value to the story.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
It could mean a lot of things. Right now, what was running through my head was that you see little distortions of the old original stories in their remakes. So if you look at like 3 remake and like 4 remake, little distortions to what's going on with Nemesis, what's happening with like the intent behind Las Plagas, and what's also going on with the Amber that Ada doesn't deliver to Wesker at the end, which she doesn't in the original either. But here it's like it's more built into the character and her sort of her arc as she is sort of this mercenary that is very detached and like wearing all these masks and she's essentially like a performer. But now we have her making a decision that is more benevolent to the collective and sort of thinking of someone that isn't herself. So those little rewrites there, they make me wonder how much more continuity is going to be established between the remakes and the mainline titles, because the mainline titles are now like kind of, it makes you wonder how much they're going to mesh with things like 4 remake. If we potentially get a CV remake or like a 5 remake, how are those going to connect? And like, do they need to significantly connect, or is this arc of Requiem and like 7 and 8 like kind of like separate? Can it stand on its own? It just makes me wonder about the interconnectedness of everything. Like how far have they planned ahead? It almost makes me think of when Marvel movies started to really proliferate all over, and like you see all of these different films coming out, part of the same universe. Like they have a whole Marvel timeline mapped out. How far ahead with this Resident Evil timeline have they mapped this out, and how how much depth are they willing to put into the work for the interconnectedness of the lore?
Yeah.
And it's like with a new era, does that mean it's like kind of blending old and new, maybe blending remakes and mainline? And kind of if we have a mercenaries kind of thing here, it sounds like we have a mercenaries. What kind of characters are we going to see? Are we going to see like maybe some legacy characters that are just available just for the sake of mercenaries, just to see like an iteration of them? Like is maybe like Chris or Claire going to be in it? You know, that makes me wonder. Like Ada even.
Yeah.
Because mechanically, if we're looking at Requiem and looking at Leon, it looks like it's kind of built a little bit off of 4 remake Leon,
Yeah.
and it'll also maybe
Definitely.
take some elements of maybe another iteration. So it just makes me kind of wonder the cohesion, how coherent everything is within this universe, and how much of it is gonna tie back into itself. That's kind of what I think about, like a whole new era beyond there just being like an explosion of exciting new remakes and titles coming. So.
You mentioning Ada makes me think that if there's
Mhm.
Leon in the game, maybe we'll get to see Ada and
Maybe Ada.
yeah, and the whole thing about how they built that interaction with Wesker on 4 remake too.
Mhm.
You know, him taking Krausers at the end and the whole thing. I don't know. It's I think it's I couldn't agree with you more. I think they're setting for something up. Maybe they'll connect the dots. I totally agree with the fact that a remake of CV would help a lot Chris's development, but at the same time, it will help Claire's too.
Yeah.
I'm dying to get a game with Claire. Claire is like one of my favorite characters, also.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know. I guess we'll see what this takes us. I'm
Uh-huh.
super excited for when Requiem comes out. I'm actually super excited about Resurrection of Biohazard Story as well. So I guess
There's so much good stuff coming.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's so much good stuff coming, and I'm pretty sure that it being the 30th anniversary, they're gonna announce some other stuff as well. So Becky,
Yeah.
I want to thank you for joining us today at La Bóveda. Guys, keep your eyes peeled for Resurrection of Biohazard Story, and thanks, Becky. Is there anything you want to say to the guys where they can follow you and stay tuned with your projects?
Yeah, no, it was great. Thank you for having me. I love having discussions like these. I feel like it's been a little bit
Yeah,
where we could just kind of talk about like our what we love in terms of
yeah,
abstractions and theory and just kind of like the ideas. I love the raw ideas, like
yeah,
I like being on streams where it's like we get news or we talk about something that's like happening, but like to just dive into the raw ideas and kind of like just play in that world
yeah.
in that abstract sense. Like that's like one of my favorite things to do. So thank you for inviting me. But yeah, it's just most of what you'll see from me is going to be on the Residents of Evil YouTube channel and our socials. I don't really post to Beggy Beg Beg YouTube, but I maybe I'll do something next year. We'll see. But yeah, it's basically just big old project is coming. This film series, and I'm looking forward to everything that you are. So thank you,
Awesome. Thanks again, guys. Until the next time. Thanks, Becky.
thank you.